We've known each other for 10 years and have been together for 1.5. I have a 2-year-old daughter from a previous relationship that he is a father figure to. Everything was fine as far as I knew until recently. He's brought up my unwillingness to compromise, namely about topics such as moving out of state and traveling abroad. I've told him from the beginning of the relationship that I've lived out of state before with my daughter's dad. I had that grass is greener mentality and left all of my friends and family behind to see what was out there. Long story short, his personality did a complete turnaround once I moved in with him. It turned out he was a drug addict, he physically abused me, I ended up pregnant despite being on birth control, and I fled one day in the middle of the night when he was passed out from pills and came back home across the country to my family. Since then, I've developed an attachment to my home state. Additionally, I'm going to inherit a beautiful house on the beach from my dad one day, and I've told my boyfriend that he's welcome to live there with me when I do. He's always saying he wants to move out of state, but the house I'm getting is 2 hours away and just as much of a change in scenery. He's still pushing that he wants to move somewhere else, and it's coming off as extremely ungrateful to me. I have a ton of family nearby and a great support system here. I won't make the mistake of isolating myself again, no matter how good of a guy he is, because I don't want to be miserable. Secondly, traveling abroad. Like I said, my boyfriend is a great guy, but he just doesn't have that kind of money. He constantly says he wants to see all of Europe, and that's fine and all, but I've just told him that traveling isn't a top priority of mine for a few reasons. I have a small child, it's very expensive, packing and airports stress me out, and I get extremely sick on airplanes. It just doesn't sound fun to me, but I've said that there are 2 countries I'd like to see one day, not in Europe. This isn't enough for him. He's claiming that I never care about what he wants to do, where he wants to go, etc., but this kind of ties into him wanting to move out of state. With what money? He wants me to do a backflip at the thought of a hypothetical trip. I'd rather spend that money on something I can use every day. I get that trips are memories, but he's always complaining about how expensive it is just to exist in terms of bills and food and whatnot. His hands are tied and his job options are limited right now due to a back injury, and I'm sorry, but I don't really want to spend my money that way. Apart from these things, we've always gotten along. I thought we were super compatible, but he's making me feel like, because of these 2 differences in views, our future together is in question. Am I being unreasonable? What could be the compromise here? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It sounds like he's right that you have different priorities and are therefore incompatible. The compromise is for you to do some of what you want to do and some of what he wants to do, such as living in your state but traveling and prioritizing saving and allocating money for travel. But it sounds like this isn't something you want to do. So, it's probably best for you both if you simply break up. Comment 2. Tell him he's welcome to travel abroad without you and invite him to start saving up the money. It sounds like you're living in the real world while he's living in some dream world where your biggest dreams are owed to you. He also doesn't seem to have the mentality of a parent. Now, for the update, I'm still living with the boyfriend, who is still pushing for the whole move out of state thing. He is determined, he really is. He talks about this stuff a lot. It feels like every other day, we have a discussion about how much he wants to move to this other state. He says it's going to be so much better for us, and that he just can't see a future for us here. I get it, but I also don't want to change my entire life again. I've done it before, and it didn't work out so great. I tried to start fresh with him, and I ended up back here with my family, and now that I'm back, I'm not in any rush to leave again. He says I'm being selfish and that I'm holding him back. I don't think I'm being selfish. I think it's just a matter of timing. I think we need to get a little more stable before we start making huge life changes. I'm a single mom. I can't just move my daughter whenever my boyfriend gets a random idea. It's not fair to her. My daughter, Olivia, has been spending a lot of time with my parents lately. I think it's good for her, and it's definitely good for me. It gives me a break, and it gives her more time with her grandparents. They really love having her over, and Olivia loves it too. She gets so excited when I tell her she's going to Grandma and Grandpa's for the night. I love that she has them. She has them, and she has a great dad. She doesn't know it yet, but she's about to have a beach house too. I'm inheriting it from my grandparents. They told me a few months ago, and we just have to get the paperwork finalized. Once we do that, it's mine. I'm so excited for it. It's gorgeous. I went there all the time when I was a kid, and I took Olivia there a few times last summer. We had a blast. It was so nice to be by the water. I can't wait to be able to go whenever I want. I think my boyfriend's gonna love it too, and I hope it'll be a good compromise for us. I hope he will back off on moving out of state so we can just enjoy this beautiful beach house together. I can dream, right? He suggested we take a weekend trip to a nearby city for a concert. He thought it would be a good way to reconnect and get out of the house. I wasn't really feeling it, but I didn't want to fight about it, so I said okay. I figured it would be good for Olivia to spend the weekend with my parents. She loves staying with them, and they love having her. So we booked the hotel and got the tickets, and that was that. It was nice to get away, but it wasn't very relaxing. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't what I got. We went to the hotel, checked in, and then went to dinner. That was nice. I had a great time at dinner, but once we got back to the hotel, things got weird. He was on his phone a lot, like more than usual. So I asked him who he was texting, and he said it was a group chat with some friends. I didn't really buy it, but I didn't want to push the issue, so I just let it go. We went to the concert, and he was kind of moody. He got all tense when he saw a couple near us being affectionate. I didn't know what to say, so I just let it go. He didn't talk to me much during the concert, but I figured he was just in his head. After the concert, we went back to the hotel. He got a phone call while we were in the room, and he went outside to take it. I didn't think much of it at the time, but looking back, I wonder if it was related to everything else. He was acting so distant and distracted. The next morning, he was still acting weird. He was short with me and just kind of snappy. I could tell he was in a bad mood, so I didn't push it. I asked if he was okay, and he said he was just tired and needed to focus on his job search. I get that he's stressed out about his job, but he has been acting different. When we got home, my sister invited me to a family barbecue. I was so happy she did because I needed a break from everything. It was nice just to get away from my house and the weirdness with my boyfriend. Everyone was there, and we had a great time. My sister told us she got a new job, and we all celebrated her getting her dream job. My mom pulled me aside and asked how things were going with my boyfriend. She said she's noticed a change in him, and she wanted to know how I was doing. I told her we were fine, and I said I was probably just imagining things. I didn't want to worry her, and I didn't want to get into it. A few days later, I was organizing Olivia's toys, and I came across an old journal. It was from when I was with her dad, and it was filled with memories of our relationship. It was kind of nice to read through it, and it made me feel nostalgic. I decided then that I wanted to have a family dinner. I wanted to have a relaxed atmosphere and talk about our future. I thought it would be a good time to have a conversation about everything. So I planned the dinner and invited everyone over. My boyfriend was late showing up, which isn't like him. When he got there, he looked messy, and he was still acting distant and distracted. I figured he was just tired from work, so I didn't say anything. We sat down for dinner, and during the meal, he made this offhand comment about needing more freedom in our relationship. It definitely raised some eyebrows. I could tell everyone was surprised, and I was a little taken aback. After dinner, I pulled him aside because I wanted to talk. I asked him about his comment, and he said he was just stressed about finding a job. He said he wanted to take a break from family obligations. I pressed him about the calls and texts I had noticed, and he got defensive. We ended up getting into this argument that echoed through the house. It was a little dramatic, and I felt bad for everyone who was there. Olivia overheard us, and she came into the room asking if we were fighting. I felt awful. I hugged her and told her everything was okay. The boyfriend got up and stormed out to cool off, and I was left feeling unsettled. The next day, he He came home, and I could tell he was in a different mood. He said he wanted to talk things through, and he admitted he had been feeling overwhelmed. He suggested we take a break from discussing our future plans. I thought that was a good idea, so I agreed. We spent the weekend apart, just giving each other some time to think. I took Olivia to the beach house for a couple of days. I wanted to enjoy some quiet time away from everything. It was nice just to relax and be by the water. While we were there, I got a message from my boyfriend asking if we could meet up. I was hesitant, but I figured it was probably a good idea. So we met for coffee at a place by the beach. It was nice just to sit with him and talk. He opened up about feeling pressure from the relationship, and we talked about it for a while. We reached a compromise to take things day by day, just focusing on our immediate needs and goals. It felt good to talk to him. As we parted ways, he hinted at wanting to be more involved in Olivia's life. I saw that as a positive step. The next week, we had a family outing that included Olivia. He was really positive and engaged with her. It was nice to see. By the end of the month, we had established clearer communication about our goals. We agreed to revisit the conversation about moving in a few months. So yeah, things are okay, I guess? I don't know. We are kinda in a better place, but I'm still a bit on edge. I just want to make sure we're all good and that Olivia's not caught up in any of this stuff. She deserves to just be a kid. No drama, you know? I just want to take it easy and see where things go, not rushing into anything. I'm not really feeling the need to update, but if something major happens, I'll definitely let y'all know. Edit. I've received messages asking about my daughter's father. He is not involved in her life. We split when I was pregnant due to his substance abuse. He hasn't seen her since. Am I the idiot for leaving my wife after she cheated and then had the nerve to beg me to stay? Met my girlfriend over a year ago while on a J-1 visa in the United States. I met her only 9 days after arriving, so we basically spent my entire 3 months there together. We fell in love pretty fast and had an amazing time. We knew I had to go home at the end of the 3 months, but we had many deep conversations about us and what we wanted, and decided we would give being in a long-distance relationship a shot. I left the United States, and about 4 weeks later, she came to visit me in my home country. It was like a movie, showing her the small town I grew up in and all the places I went to as a kid. We even did a little trip around some other nearby countries. We both had a very convenient work situation where we could be remote, so every 6 weeks, one of us would go visit the other for a month. On the days we were apart, we would FaceTime every single day and never missed a day. Talking to her is so easy. It got to a stage where we realized that going back and forth isn't sustainable, so we looked into moving to the same country together. She happens to be a European Union citizen through her dad, so it made sense for her to at least try to move to my country for a bit and work remotely. We had a great time, but realized pretty quickly that the lifestyle in my country wasn't really suited to us and the life we want, and the job market is completely terrible. So we decided that because everything about the relationship was perfect, we would get legally married so that I could live with her in the United States. It made more sense, even for things outside of the relationship. Like, for example, I have a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degree that would pay extremely well in the city she's from, and it's very hard for me to get a science, technology, engineering, and mathematics job in my hometown. She also has a very close relationship with her family. I'm on good terms with mine, but definitely not as close. Anyway, I'm extremely excited for this new life in the United States. I have a lot of friends in her city from living there, and I have the potential to make a serious amount of money. I came to the United States, we got legally married, and while I'm waiting for my green card, I was able to get an employment authorization document, work permit, with which I have secured a dream job in this dream city that is paying me about 3 times more than any job I've ever had in my life. I started the job yesterday. Now, for an update. Around the time of the anniversary of us deciding to be exclusive, she started acting strangely when I was talking about saying it was a happy day and we should mark the occasion. She didn't respond to my texts about it, and avoided the conversation when I talked about it in person. She put it down to being so stressed at work, and to be fair, she has a very stressful job, so I believed her. But I still had a weird feeling in my gut, so I mentioned again a few weeks later that we should do something to mark the occasion now that work is less stressful, even if it's late now. She got weird about it again. So then I decided to have a look, which I'm not proud of, and I know is frowned upon by many, but we have talked about it and gave each other permission to look. She checks my phone all the time, and I don't care as I have nothing to hide. I had never checked hers before until this time. Anyway, all I did was search the name of the guy she was seeing before me in her texts, and I saw all that I needed to know. The next morning, I was in a terrible mood, and she could see this. So after her persistently asking why, I said that I saw something on her phone, and I needed her to explain it to me honestly. Long story short, she had hooked up with this guy about a week after we had become exclusive. They went on a dinner date, went to a nightclub after, and then went back to her apartment, where I had stayed the night before this happened, and the night after this happened, and had intimacy. She confessed all of this to me today. I'm heartbroken, and I don't know what to do. We've had such a dream relationship, and everything is great other than this. I also can't stay in this dream job in this really cool city if we break up. The situation in my home country is kind of bleak. I'm so conflicted for these reasons. She also said that if I decide to leave her, she completely understands, but also doesn't want to wait around pretending to be with me until I get my green card. I know we were in the early days, and I understand long distance is tough. But I think I have a right to be sad if she has intimacy with someone after we agreed to be exclusive. Does anyone have thoughts on what I should do? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So you uprooted your whole life for this woman, and she's just like, sorry bro, I slept with someone else. Oh, and by the way, I'm not willing to just keep the marriage until your citizenship is squared. You're just out of luck. Lol. She seems like an atrocious human being, and you should tell her as much. Definitely consult a lawyer. You don't owe her anything. She's a terrible person. I don't know, tell her you're thinking about it for like the next 2 years, then divorce her. Comment 2. Jesus, the sheer number of people who are suggesting lying to her for a green card is crazy. Don't do bad things because someone wronged you. It doesn't absolve you of the behavior. If you're staying, try. Go to marriage counseling. You don't have to commit to getting past this, but you can honestly commit to trying. If you're over her and this isn't something you want to try to forgive, you have to leave. I'd talk to an immigration lawyer. Now, for the update. 3 days after the whole confrontation with Olivia, and I'm just trying to make sense of everything. It feels like my head is spinning, but I gotta keep it together, you know? So, I figured I'd just dive into work and pretend like my life isn't a mess. Turns out, that's easier said than done. Work's been a good distraction, but every time I get a moment of quiet, my mind just goes back to her. Anyway, enough of that. My parents invited me out to celebrate my dad's birthday at a local steakhouse. I love my family, but I wasn't sure I was ready to put on a happy face. I thought about bringing Olivia, but no idiots here. Things are still kinda awkward, and I didn't want to make things weirder. So, I went solo. When I got to the restaurant, my younger sister Kate immediately jumped on me, giving me the biggest hug. She was all like, "I've missed you so much. It's so nice to see you and Olivia together." Yeah, she didn't know about the whole Olivia situation. I just nodded and smiled, not trusting my voice. Dinner was good, but I was just kind of going through the motions. It's like I was there but not really there, you know? After we ate, my mom suggested we take a family photo to remember the occasion. Everyone gathered around, and I stood awkwardly on the edge. I just wanted to disappear. My dad made a joke about needing more grandkids, and everyone laughed except me. That one hurt a bit. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia while I was at dinner. She was asking if we could talk. I didn't want to deal with that mess right then, so I just texted back that I was busy and would call her later. A few hours later, after dinner was done and I was at home, I got a message from Olivia's friend on social media. It was just a casual mention of seeing Olivia with her ex at a bar last weekend. My stomach dropped a little. I asked her for more details, and she said they were all drinking and looked cozy. I don't know what that means, but I wasn't about to ignore it. I decided I needed to confront Olivia again about what her friend told me. The next day, we met up at this cafe we used to go to all the time. I laid it all out there. I was like, "Why didn't you tell me the truth about seeing your ex?" She started stammering and trying to explain, but honestly, I was just getting more and more frustrated. I told her I already knew she was with her ex, and I heard it from a friend. When I said that, her expression changed. She admitted it was a mistake, but she also said she didn't regret it. That hit me right in the gut. I told her I was moving out of our shared apartment. She tried to negotiate, saying we could work things out if I just gave it time. But I was done negotiating. I told her I'd already made my decision, and she should start looking for a new place. She just stared at me in disbelief. I started packing my stuff, and it was just so surreal. As I was packing, I found a piece of jewelry I gave her, and I decided to keep it. I told her I'd be keeping the jewelry as a reminder of what our relationship became. After I finished packing, I left the apartment. It was weird walking out of there for the last time. The next day, I went out with my family for a weekend trip to the beach. I really needed it. We shared stories and laughed, and it felt good to escape for a little while. I kept getting texts from Olivia, asking if we could talk, but I just ignored them. Then came a final message from her, begging me to reconsider. That one hurt a little more, but I was already done. I decided to meet up with some friends from work for a night out, just to embrace my newfound freedom. The night turned into a full-blown celebration, and honestly, I needed it. To answer a few questions, I had not seen any signs of Olivia with her ex before the recent events. Our relationship felt great up until that point, making her actions more shocking. The jewelry piece I kept was a necklace I gave her on our first anniversary. I didn't want to return it because it represented how good our relationship was before the betrayal. As for the job, I'm still enjoying it and have the support of my coworkers. Am I the idiot for moving into the spare room after my wife started late-night texting her colleague? Been together for almost 10 years. We met at university in the same course. She was an international student, and she subsequently found work afterwards and stayed to live in the country. She first rented alone and then moved in with my immediate family after a few years. Fast forward a few years, we then got married, and we now have a 1-year-old and had plans to purchase a house of our own. Up until now, she was my rock, the one and only person I completely trusted with my life and the soulmate I wished to spend the rest of my life with to build a beautiful family. Not to say my family is bad, but they have their priorities, and I quickly learned that I'm not the most important sibling. She was essentially my best friend, not just my wife. Now, the issue at hand. Once she was off maternity leave, she returned to work, which caused her a lot of stress due to changes in management. She found support in the form of a senior colleague who she says has been really supportive and helpful in the transition back to work. I can understand this, as we are in the same line of work, and I personally know the stresses she is under, especially within the company she works for. My problem is that they text each other in the early hours and late at night, with the odd call at night or when waking. I am not always present at those times due to varying bedtimes and wake-up times, but I have seen the call logs. So far, she says there hasn't been anything that has completely crossed the line, meaning no kissing, intimacy, or sexually suggestive texts. The furthest being that they miss each other, and he tells her she's pretty. I confronted her twice about this situation and said directly to her, "I don't know what is going on between you two, but I don't like it. If you wish to break up with me and pursue another guy, tell me first at the very least, and we'll either try to work things out or I'll step aside because at least you are honest." She held my hand and promised, "Please don't laugh. I know this sounds so soppy that nothing is going on and I don't have anything to worry about." Over the next week or two, I caught her texting the guy as she hid her phone and introduced a subject of conversation to divert my attention. I didn't confront her at any point. The final straw was when one morning, after our little one woke up a tad earlier than usual, she checked her phone and noticed her mum had called her in the early hours, which is very unusual as she lives across the world with a large time difference. She stepped out of the room to call her back. She would normally just call back in front of me, and she always speaks to her mum in front of me. I assumed she stepped out due to it being early, and our little one may want to fall back asleep. She then came back after a few minutes and got ready for work. I looked through her phone, and lo and behold, Mr. Steal Your Girl is the mystery missed call. I also looked through the texts and found that she had also sent a good morning text with a selfie of herself under the covers that morning. I calmed down a bit and left them in the bedroom to nap later. Then I blew up on her over text. I would have smashed something if I did it face to face. She admitted to emotionally cheating and kept apologizing, saying she doesn't understand why it happened. Work stress, she said. I wasn't there for her. She even kept lying when I asked who was calling her that morning, trying to evade answering and even deleting the call log. After a barrage of texts filled with hatred from my side, I then asked her how we should move forward, with 3 options. Opening up the marriage. I do not want this, but wanted to know where she stands. If she said yes, complete deal breaker, and I am gone. Divorce. Not sure how co-parenting will work from across the world. Working it out between us. She kept evading again, not wanting to answer as she didn't know what she wanted at this point. I then point blank just said, as it stands, you are not ruling out that he is an option? What ended the life of me in her response was, I guess so, yes. But whether or not I will actually pursue anything is a different story. At the moment, I like talking to him. There isn't more to it. I had hoped she would be able to denounce that he is someone she is looking at to be with. What's broken me is the way she can be so cold-hearted even after breaking my heart. I don't know if I'm expecting her to get on her knees and cry and beg for my forgiveness, but she has just gone cold and quiet and is giving me space. At this point, I can't help but feel so insecure and helpless. Spending so much time together, thinking we were building something together and not a broken home, no disrespect to single parents or those co-parenting with ex-partners, but I don't think I have the strength to even think about that situation right now. She asked where I stand after all this, and I said, honestly, I love you, and our child is my priority. I don't know if we can work things out as I can't trust you right now. Am I being an idiot crying over something like this? Has anyone been in this situation before, and it then worked out between the two of you? If you decided to split, how has co-parenting been, and how was finding a new partner? I'm so angry, lost, and helpless, and I don't have any friends I'm close enough with to confide in. So thank you, Reddit. To add, please let me know if any points need clarity, and I'll make an edit. My head is at a loss right now. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She obviously doesn't respect you or care for you. She has emotionally cheated on you and basically has no remorse and is not sure what she wants to do. That should be enough for the marriage to be over, brother. Lawyer up, get the evidence, and make sure she does not make you the bad guy. Comment 2. Her evasion of an answer is an answer. She doesn't care about you or your relationship. It's not even a hint at this point. You need to protect yourself and your child, which means getting your affairs in order and preparing for a divorce. Now for the update. A couple days after we had the whole confrontation thing, I moved into a spare room in our house just to create some space. I really thought that was what we needed. She kept going to work, and I ended up taking care of our 1-year-old. Not gonna lie, it was exhausting, especially since I was dealing with all the other stuff in my head too. But what else was I gonna do? She started coming home later than usual, saying it was because of work commitments. I wasn't buying it, especially since I still noticed the late-night texting to that colleague of hers. Like, what kind of work requires you to text your colleague at 2 a.m. every night? So one evening, I overheard her on the phone in the bathroom. I could hear her whispering and laughing. It made me feel sick, honestly. When I confronted her about it, she brushed it off, saying it was just a work issue. Right. So we kept avoiding the obvious problem, this emotional cheating thing. I figured we needed a distraction, so I scheduled a family dinner at my parents' house. I thought it would help us get our minds off everything for a bit, and maybe even ease the tension. During dinner, the wife got a message and excused herself from the table. The whole thing was weird, but I tried to act like it was all good. After dinner, she took a really long time in the bathroom, which had me worried. My parents and siblings even noticed the tension between us. My younger sister asked if everything was okay, and I just gave her a vague response. I didn't want to drag the whole family into our mess. Later that night, I found my wife's phone unlocked and saw all the texts from that colleague. The messages were just jokes and personal exchanges that felt way too intimate for work buddies. I took a screenshot for later reference, but didn't confront her about it right away. The following weekend, we went to a friend's birthday party. I thought it would be good for us to socialize a bit and try to act normal. But honestly, she was so distant, like a million miles away. She spent most of the time chatting with her friend, and I overheard snippets of her conversation that hinted at her having deeper feelings for this colleague. It made me so mad. On the drive home, I brought up the party, but she just changed the subject. A week later, I found out she had been meeting this colleague for coffee during work hours. I stumbled upon a calendar invite on her phone while looking for a family event. I confronted her about these coffee meetings, and she admitted she was just seeking support. The conversation escalated, and we ended up accusing each other of dishonesty. We had to agree to attend a couples déjeuner, dinner with some friends, to ease the tension. During dinner, a mutual friend asked how we were handling the stress of parenting. I could feel my wife's eyes on me, waiting for my answer. After dinner, I confronted her about discussing our issues publicly. We can't even talk about our problems in private, and she's out here talking about it with friends? That night, I received a text from the colleague, but it was mistakenly sent to me instead of her. The text implied that the wife was unhappy and hinted at exploring their connection. I sent a quick response to the colleague, just saying we need some boundaries here. The next morning, my wife found out about the text, and she was furious. We ended up having a huge argument, and she packed a bag and left for a few days. I spent that time with our kid, trying to maintain some normalcy. After a few days, she returned, looking more collected, but so distant. She proposed going to couples therapy, but honestly, I was hesitant. A few weeks later, I discovered that she had been seeing this colleague outside of work. I found an email confirmation for a weekend getaway they had planned together. When I confronted her about it, we had this massive argument. She fully acknowledged the emotional affair and said she wanted to pursue it. So, we agreed to separate, but the custody of our kid is still a huge point of contention. Mini update. We finalized our separation and custody terms with minimal conflict. She's now in a relationship with the colleague, and I'm focused on co-parenting. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.